Hi everyone, welcome along to the webinar. Just going to set up the chat so that people can actually type in. Can never remember how to do this. Okay, you should be able to chat now, guys. If you type in the chat, should be able to see that. So if you could just let me know if you can hear me all right, and if you can see me. No worries, Rent. Yeah, there'll be a replay. No problem. Cool, I can see there's people now in the chat. Yep, Joel, Danielle, Hans, great. You can hear and see me. That's perfect. How's everyone doing today? How's your days going? How's the weather where you are? We've had some pretty bad weather here in England, actually, considering it's August. It's been rainy, it's been pretty grey. It's lightened up today now, which is nice. Tell me a bit about where you guys are from while people are joining, and then we'll get things kicked off in a couple of minutes. Hot where you are, Joel. Yeah, whereabouts are you, Joel? Idaho, cool. Netherlands for you, Hans. Similar weather, yeah. Sunny and warm in Boston. Nice, Danielle. Yeah, nice and sunny, Mike, in the UK at the moment. That's right. Cool. Got people from all over the place, which is great to see. Okay, so I'm just going to let a few more people join in before I start the webinar. And while I do that, I'll just let people know what we're going to be doing today. So the basis of today's webinar is about what would make a good portfolio. You know, we're going to show you what a portfolio could look like in Convertri. I'm going to be using this template here, but what I'm also going to be showing you is how to set up some cool actions and events using Convertri's actions and events system that will help boost the engagement and hopefully the amount of clients you start to get from any portfolios you guys are making. And of course, you can see here, we've got like an example. I'll go through this in a moment. This can apply to any niche. You know, you can very much picture these images being of something else for a different industry, perhaps. So it doesn't just have to be for the example that I'm going to show you. But yeah, we'll kick things off now then. So my name's Dan. For those of you who haven't been to a webinar before, I run the customer webinars here at Convertri. I've been working here now for over 3 years. And since I joined, we've made some really great improvements to the app, and we continue to do so. So I'm very much, you know, on the product side of things now, running these webinars, helping users get the best out of the app. And that's what I really enjoy doing. So hopefully, if those of you who've seen my webinars in the past do find them useful, and hopefully today we can teach you a little bit of something new, which will be very useful for you going forward. So this is the page then that I've built beforehand, and what I want to do is just show you the live version of that page. So I'm just going to get the publish link, and we'll go to that, and this will help to show you an example of what we're going to be doing today in the demo. So we've got here a portfolio page. We've got a menu up here, but I haven't connected it to any other pages. But you could imagine this being as part of a wider website. So maybe there's a home page, you know, services about, and then the portfolio page is showing off your work. So for this example, we've got a photographer's portfolio, and this is actually a template that's available in the app directly. So you can see it's fairly simple. On the base of it, we've got here's some we took earlier, and then a list of photos that the particular photographer has taken. And then I've added some extra bits in here, which is what I'll show you then how to make. So you can see I've added this video. The video itself isn't aligned to the photography niche. I've just used one in my account. And I've also added something under one of these photos to show you a cool effect. So you can see on the page, we've got this contact form, which appears as part of a two-step. So you click it and then it opens as a pop-up. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And the two other effects that we'll show you on this page example, one of them being a video lead gate. So if I play this video now, what I've done is set it up so that it will play for about 6 seconds. When it gets to 6 seconds, the pop-up layer will appear and the video will then pause in the background as well. It looks like the pause one hasn't been set up yet on this example, but we can set that up so that it does pause. And what that will do is it will actually prevent the user, you can see that it's paused, so I must have set it up to pause a little bit later. The user will actually not be able to watch the rest of the video without, acknowledging this form. And in that way, you can hopefully get a bit more engagement with your clients or people that are interested. So those are two variations of a pop-up. And the last thing I've got is this cool mouse over effect, which you can add to any element on a page. And that will just allow you to have like these hidden effects appear when people are interacting with your page. So again, you could imagine if this was done on the top one, we can maybe set it up on the top one. When someone was mouse over it, they can read a little bit about the photo. Maybe it's a service you're providing, if you're maybe an interior designer, and you could include some information underneath the image about the work you've done. And obviously there are different ways to do that. You could have a simple caption next to it, but in doing it this way, you can really keep the artistic feel of your portfolio, which if you're doing something, especially like photography, is going to be really useful. So that's the 3 effects that I'm going to show you, and then we'll look at some other things with elements such as internal links, how to set up links within your own page so that you can click on a button or an element and it'll take you to another part of the page automatically. And we'll also look at the carousel element as well and what you can do with that. And after that, we'll go through any of your questions that you might have. So I'm just going to come out of this one now and we'll load up the portfolio webinar template. And I hope you can see that here. I've got my Convertri mug. I hope you guys can see that. This is something that Andy and Neil have been keeping from me for years. I joke with them because everyone else in the company seems to have one except me, even though I am actually based in the UK, which is where they're based as well. So I finally got my hands on one now, which is good and always helpful for the webinars. So I'm in the editor now, as you can see, for the template page. And what I've actually done is I've taken off the layer and I've taken off the actions and events that are set up on the page already so we can build them out together. So the first thing we need to do whenever we're setting up actions and events is we need to make sure we've got names for our elements. So this is really key because you'll see if we go into our actions and events menu, let's just take the logo as an example. Let's say we wanted to set up an action and event sequence when someone hovered over the logo. If we go to actions and events in the element properties for this element, we can add a new action. We can set the event type. We could set it to on the mouse entering the element. We could then click on the action and we could then choose for perhaps a script to run, or we could have a video to start, or we could have an element to be hidden. So if we're choosing an element to be hidden, we'd click hide target and we would then go through to the target. And from here, we would have to select the target. Now you can see on this page, only 2 elements or 2 things, 2 targets are appearing. Now, of course, you can see from the page behind me, that's not the case. The reason this is because these 2 are the only things that have been named. Now on this template, I'm not actually sure what these 2 things are. However, I can tell you pretty sure that it's not any of these images. It's not the layer isn't actually on the page now, so it won't be that. And what this means is if you wanted for an image to hide, you'd have to have it named first. So that's the first thing you need to make sure you're doing when you set up actions and events. And I'll show you exactly how you can do that. So to name any element in Convertri, all you need to do is select it, go to general properties, and then the top option here says name, and you literally just type in your name. You could call it anything you like, and that will now give that element a name so that it can appear as a target. So we'll go through and do it for these images. We'll just call this one image 1. image 2, and so on. And what I'm going to do is just do this for all of these, just to show you that it's really, you know, good practice. It doesn't take any time at all really to do this. You don't have to come up with fancy names. Obviously, you want to make sure it's something that you remember. Like, I know that we've got 6 images here, and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in doing that, what you've ensured is that these images can become targets for any of your actions and events. Now, when you create a layer, which I'll show you shortly, and that becomes a target, you won't need to name that because it will already be given a name. You won't need to do this process that we've just done here, but it is definitely important for in actions and events involving elements. So you can see we've labeled those now, which is fine. And if we go back to our Smith Photography logo and go and do the same sort of thing that we just looked at, then you'll see we would have, so let's just say we have mouse movement, hide again, and then we'll now be able to choose any of those images as well as the logo itself that we have actually set up here. So you can see that's how the system works in a nutshell. You need to have your targets named, or if you're using a layer, they'll appear as a layer in here. We have a number of different event types. You can see we've got click, on first click, on form submit, mouse movement, on entering, on leaving, and scroll. You can even have when like the bottom of an element scrolls into viewport or the top, etc. So these are your events. These are things that happen on the page in order for an action to occur. And largely we'll be dealing with show and hide, but you also have options for starting or pausing a video, maybe pausing a countdown timer as well, running a script if you're into that kind of thing. And then the target is whatever the target element is for the action event sequence to appear on. So that's at element level. You can also do actions and events at layer level, which I'll show you shortly, and also at page level as well, which you can use by clicking the actions button here. So one quite common page action you could do is an exit intent. So you can see now I've clicked that button, I've got the page option here. We could do an exit intent. So when the mouse goes to view, leave the viewport, they're showing exit intent. You could then have a target appear when that happens, and that might be a pop-up. You could make one specifically that said, you know, please don't leave the page now. Here's you know, another offer for you. So that's one way you can use the page level one. But I'm going to jump now into the portfolio side of things. So actions and events that will help with a portfolio. And as we saw on the other page, we had this 2-step opt-in pop-up. So I'm going to set that up now. And as I mentioned, I've removed the layer so we can go through the process together of adding it. And that will hopefully be helpful for anyone who wants to do a 2-step pop-up opt-in. So I've got my button here, which is great. This is going to be the action trigger. But first, what we need to do is add our layer. So we click layers, and here we can choose either a new blank layer, or we can choose from the Convertri layers that we have available for you to use yourself. So headers, footers, we do have a number of opt-ins that we've built out already as templates and a pop-up. I've actually got the photography opt-in that I want to use saved as a layer. So I saved that as a layer, which is something you can do. And that will keep the properties as well. I can give it whatever name I like. So I'm just going to call it, you know, opt-in layer. It looks like actually, because I've saved it as that name, it will automatically add it as that name. But you can rename it. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. If I click add now, that's going to, here we go, give you the layer name choice. So I can just call this, you know, opt-in layer and remove that. And then once I hit OK, that layer will now be added. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with layers, the little layers dialog here will pop up whenever you click on layers at the top. If the layer is ticked with this blue tick, that means the layer is selected. So if you start adding elements to the page when the layer is selected, you'll actually be adding elements to the layer. So if you do want to start adding elements back to the main page, you'll need to deselect the layer like that. That will then show as hidden. Now I've added my layer, and what I want to do now is add my action and event sequence so that the layer appears when this button is clicked. So to do that, I'm going to select my element first, go to element properties, and then I'm going to go to actions and events here down the bottom. I'm then going to click add new action. Event type is going to be click. So on click, the action is going to be show, and I'll fade the target in just so it's a little bit more subtle for the prospect. I'm then going to choose my target, which in this case will be the layer opt-in layer. And then I'm going to click done. So now this is set up, that layer will appear when this button is clicked. Now there is something else you'll have to set up as well, which I believe will already be set up on my layer because it does save properties when you save a layer. And I will walk you through what that is. Does anyone in the chat want to hazard a guess at what that might be? So let's say I've set this up so the layer will click, when the button is clicked, the layer will fade in. Does anyone know what the other action I will have to set up will be for that layer to make sure that the sequence is complete so no one doesn't get stuck on that screen? Oh yeah, so Sean's got it. Gerald's got it. The close button is what we're looking for. Yeah, fade out hands, that's right. So essentially you need a way for the prospect to get back to the main page if they don't want to sign up, otherwise they'll be stuck there. So let's have a look and see if our layer has kept that. I'm going to show the layer, and then I'm going to go to the 3-dot menu and then actions and events. And you can see actually I must have removed that before I set up the or saved the layer, which is quite handy because it means I can show you it now. So the layer itself actually won't have the action event on it. It'll be this button here. So we can close that and we'll see if it's on the close button. We go actions and events, there we go. So I just got a little bit confused there. I thought the close would be on the layer, but correcting myself, it would be on that close button. So what we need is a similar action and event sequence to the button, but for this little close element. And you can see we've got that here already. So that would be event type again on click, the action would be hide, fade out the target, and the target would be the layer itself. So we now have that set up, and that means our pop-up is fully set up. I just need to close the layer. And once I've done that, we can save the page, and I'll preview that now and we'll be able to see that in full effect. So if we scroll down, you can see we've got our button here. We'll click that and that will now fade in our pop-up. And if we don't want to submit the form, we can then click on the close button and that will close it again. And this is repeatable, so we can keep doing that, allowing prospects to decide if they want to sign up again after they have closed the layer. So that's a pretty good tool to have there to set up, that two-step kind of pop-up opt-in layer. And really that's going to be quite important for a portfolio thing. I think the reason I like that the most is because the contact form on the page itself can sometimes detract from the work. If you're going for a portfolio like this page is, you just want to have your work, really. You want the photos, you want it to look nice, especially if you're in like an artistic field, as I mentioned. Then maybe you don't want that form on there. And that way you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You've still got the ability to contact you. You're not actually redirecting them to another page, which of course reduces the chance of any like drop-off rate, maybe with connection, with loading times. Not that that would be a problem with Convertri, of course. But if you want to do it so it's all on the same page, but you don't want it to be in the way, this represents a really good option. So I think that's definitely an action and event sequence to make sure you guys have honed and know how to set that up. The next one I'm going to show you is the mouse over one that I exemplified from the original. So we'll choose to do it with image 2 just because it's at the top of the page, and I won't actually write out like a big long chunk of text. I'm just going to write something exemplary, but what we'll want to do is add a text element, and then we'll start writing our text. So this text will appear when the image fades out. So we'll just have something like that. And you can of course have whatever text you want. You can format it in any way you like. I'm going to give the text element itself like a background color just so it stands out. We'll give it like this whitey gray. And I'm then going to move that over the top of the image. And then I'm going to use the image selector to click on that and bring it forward so that that image is now above the text. So you can see there, the text is sat behind the image. So what I want to do is have this image disappear when I scroll over it and reappear when I exit it. So I'm going to click on the image. This time we're doing it just for this element, so we don't have to worry about layers or anything like that. And then I'm going to click actions and events. Then I'll just click add new action. Event type will be mouse movement this time. And we're going to have on mouse entering the element. The action will be to hide the target. We'll fade it out. And the target is going to be image 2, which is what we're mousing over. So we're setting up an action and event sequence on image 2 to fade image 2 out. We're then going to set a corresponding one up so that when the mouse leaves the element, the action is to fade back in the image. So you can see there, once I've set that up, that is now in reverse. So this now will achieve the result that we want, and that is to show the hidden text behind the image. So if we save our progress again, we can go to preview. And if we mouse over this, you'll see that the image will fade out. And if we mouse outside of it, it will fade back in. So you could imagine that there are many use cases for this. You know, I've got here that it's just a bit of text. You know, you'll have seen on my example from earlier that it was, you know, a bit of descriptive text. In fact, if I've got that here still, yeah, it was like a bit of text about the photo. You know, you could give it like almost like a caption, but it's hidden, keeping that aesthetic feel on the page. But there are other use cases for this. You could have, you know, a hidden offer behind it. You could have a hidden service package behind the image. So what this really does, though, is it encourages engagement on your pages. You're encouraging people to interact with your page. So yeah, you're hiding it, your hands, so you're not leaving it blank. You're kind of just like making it disappear, if that makes sense. So you can have something behind it. And that way you can have like this hidden effect. I hope that's clear. If not, let me know. And Sean's asking, how do you select the text again if it's in the image, which is a great question. We can show you how to do that, no problem. There are a couple of ways, Sean. So one way would be to select the image again, send it backward one. That would make the text appear. You could then edit it like any way you wanted. And then you could simply select the text and bring it forward again. Another way you could do access that element is by using the element tree. You go onto editor, click show element tree, and then you'll see this text here. That's, you know, that's the text. I can select it from the tree, and that will let me access it and edit it without moving the positioning of it around. So that's probably your best bet, but there are a few other little shortcuts you can do to do that. No worries, Sean. Yeah, so Hans, you could have another picture. Doesn't have to be a text element. You could have any other element behind it. You could even have a complete contact form. You know, I'm just using the text in this example, but yeah, you could have another image. You could have, as I say, a complete form. You could have a button, anything like that. It is very, very flexible. The main reason why it's so good for portfolios is because you're keeping the look of the portfolio, but you're encouraging that engagement as well. So you're making sure that people will actually have to appreciate your work and interact with the image, if it's an image you're using, to see what's behind the image. So yeah, I think that's something that's really works well on portfolios. I'd love to see if you guys try that out. You know, please do tag me in the Facebook group if you're trying any of these stuff out on your pages. I'm more than happy to, you know, have a look, give any help with them. But yeah, I think that's a really cool effect. And yeah, really, as you say, Hans, really pulls people into the page and hopefully gets more interaction there. So they're the first two from the example page that I wanted to show you. So we've got the hover, we've got our two-step. And the last one that I want to show you specifically that I've built on this page is this video lead gate. So I will have a couple other ones to show you. I'll set the page exit intent up. I think that's a good one to have as well. Very similar to the opt-in page, the two-step opt-in, but worth showing off, I think. And we'll also look at some internal links and some carousels as well. So just to add this video in, I'm going to move the page around a little bit. So I'm going to just drag this section down. I'm using shift drag there to do that, if anyone's wondering. And I'm then just going to put another panel in the middle here. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll just drag this one down and I'll snap it to the one below. So I've got this big space here now where I can add my video, which is what I'm going to do. So from the media gallery, I'll add video. Now, the one thing to note with this is you can't use actions and events with any of the third-party players. So Vimeo, Vistia, or YouTube, they won't work for actions and events. And that's just because we don't have control of the player. So because these are third-party tools, we don't have the capability to tell it to do certain things when an action or an event has occurred. For that reason, it's only available with our video element. So bear that in mind. Make sure you're using the video element, otherwise you won't be able to do this next feature. So I'm going to add my video now, choose from my library. You can, of course, add a URL from like self-hosting if you want. And I'm just going to choose an example here. So this is my just example video, just for the purpose of the webinar. As I say, it's not anything to do with the photography niche. So please forgive me if that throws you off a little bit. Barbara's asked if there'll be a replay. Yeah, no worries, Barbara, there will be a replay. I'll get that live probably the start of next week. We'll try and get them out when the update goes out. So it should be there in the knowledge base for you. So if anyone does have to dash off or if they're having internet trouble, don't worry, we'll have the full replay available. Cool, so we have this video set up now. And what we're trying to achieve with this is that when someone watches a certain part of the video, the layer appears, we'll use the same layer, we'll use this same layer, the layer appears and the video is paused. So to do that, I'm going to set up an action event sequence first on my video, and that's going to be for the time elapsed. So I'll go to actions and events, add new action, click on event type, and here we're going to go to video time. Now we have a few options. We have passes the time marker, which is what I'm going to use. Total play length, which is like if someone's skipping around in the video and you want it to be the amount that they've watched in total, you could set that to 5 seconds. If they watch 3 seconds at the start and skip to the end, they'll only be able to watch 2 more seconds, for example. You could have when the section between 2 points is fully played, and you can also have when the video gets between 2 time markers. And in that way as well, you can set it so that if someone skips from, the start to like the end, you could have it from a point in the middle to the end, and that would be your markers. I'm going to have video passes time marker here, and I'm going to set it to 5 seconds for this example. My action is then going to be to show and fade in the target, and our target again is the layer. So you can see it's very kind of intuitive once you get used to it. You're doing a lot of the same stuff when you're making things appear, for example, or disappear. You're not having to do anything too technical, too advanced. There's no coding involved. You're doing all this with a simple modal builder. So the back-end stuff is all covered for you. So we'll hit done on this, and that will now achieve the effect of playing the video, allowing the video to be played for 5 seconds before the layer appears. Now, what we need to have on the layer is a action and event set up so that when the layer appears, the video is paused. And what this does is it means that the layer will pause the video when it's shown. And with that in mind, when the layer appears after 5 seconds happens, the video will then pause. Now, you are going to get a possible double effect if you're watching the video and the layer appears by clicking this button. That's not the end of the world, because if you want someone to be on the layer, in theory you want the video paused anyway. So I think it's kind of like a double effect there, which is quite nice. So to add an action event to a layer, open the layer. You can select it if you want, but you don't have to. And then just click 3-dot menu, actions and events. That will actually auto select the layer. You'll then add a new action. Event type can be, open or close. So you could have it on layer open, You could have it on time passed after the layer is shown. And we'll do on layer open, and then we'll have action as video player, and that will then be to pause the video. And you're going to see something here, because I was wondering if anyone has caught this. But does anyone remember what I forgot to do here? Because I didn't see any comments to stop me. Let's see if anyone was paying attention at the start. Can anyone think what I'm going to have trouble with now I've come to set this up? Yeah, Sean's got it. Cool. Yeah, so Sean's got it. I didn't name the video element. So what's going to happen now, as we looked at the start, is when I go to click my target, there isn't any. So because I'm selecting a video action and there are no videos that have been named, I'm getting this blank drop down. So if you're ever setting up an action event and you forget, it's easy to do it. That is what is the cause of that. So we're going to have to cancel out of this now. We're going to have to close the layer down. You can see it's kind of frustrating if you forget to do that. So make sure when you're setting up actions and events, the first thing you want to do is name your element. So we can just call this video 1. Close that, go back to my layer, click on the 3-dot menu, actions and events, and from there, I can now set up my action sequence to pause the layer. So we'll have on layer open. My action is going to be the video player, pause the video, and that target is going to be video 1. So we'll hit done, and that will now pause the video. We still have the layer close on this element, so that will allow the layer to be closed. If you want to remove that for maybe a separate opt-in form where you're literally gating the video so they can't get off it without submitting the form, you can do that. I'm not going to do that for this example, but you could remove that. So we'll close the layer now. We need to untick it first, and we'll close that. And we now have this set up so that if we save our progress again and preview it, that should be working as we'd expect. So I'll scroll down to that now. We can play the video. I'll just mute it in case the sound does carry to the webinar. And you can see when we see it go past 5, what will happen is the layer will appear, and you can see in the background there, it's stopped moving. The video has paused. So we've achieved the video lead gate. So there's the 3rd actions and event sequence set up that we had on our example page. The brilliant thing about this one is it's great for increasing conversions, because people will often think that they have to submit the form to actually close the layer and then to carry on watching the video. So it's a great way if you've got like an offer and you're teasing the offer to have the form appear just before you reveal it. That way you're guaranteed to get that email sign up without having to secure a purchase to get their details for any marketing purposes, that kind of thing. So video lead gates are great for any marketing page, I would say, with a video, specifically portfolios, because if you're showing a specific demo of the work you've done, you know, photography is perhaps not the best example for this use case, but let's take a gardener, for example. Let's say you're like a landscape gardener who's doing some work turning a garden from one state to the other. You might have your introduction in the video, and you might say, like, I'm about to go through this garden, which is a complete mess. You show the horrendous garden, and then just before you transition to the brand spanking new garden that you've done, you have this form appear, and it says something like, to see the transformation, sign up below, you know, to my mailing list, sign up for a quote, something like that. And they can't actually then see the rest of the video without doing that. So that's a great way that you can increase conversions as well. So yeah, when you then close, the video will stay paused. You could set up another action and event sequence so that it does start playing. And we can do that now. I think that's a good idea to just make it a bit more complete. And to do that, we'll just go onto the layer. We'll add another actions and event sequence. and we'll then add a new action. The event type this time will be close the layer. The action will be the video starts playing, and the video will be video 1. So we've kind of rectified the pausingness and the video having to be played by the user. But you don't have to have this step. The reason I didn't show it is because I don't think it's necessary, but it's a nice suggestion, Hans. So I think, yeah, worth showing that. So we'll see it again here. We've got our 5 seconds, which causes the layer to appear. It's paused. On layer close, the video will start playing again. So I think that's a nice complete effect there, to be fair. Okay, so that is like the main part of the demo for the portfolio. Hopefully I've shared some information that's both useful for portfolios and helpful for actions and event setup. Is there any questions on any of that before I move on to some other cool little things you can do in your Convertri pages to make your portfolios look better? Happy to take some questions now before the main Q&A at the end. You're welcome, Hans. I'm glad that you liked it. Cool. So it doesn't look like there's any questions now, which is no problem at all. So what I'm going to do is move on to a couple of other features that I think are quite good. And to do this again, we want to name the elements. What for the first one I'm going to show you, I actually think this element here might be named already as contact. Yeah, so that's the one that we had at the start. So that's fine. Don't need to rename that. What I'm going to do is show you how you can have an internal link on your page, and that way people can navigate around it a lot easier. I'll show you the example with this contact form here, but you could imagine it in other scenarios as well. So what I'm going to do is just clone this button because I want the same button. I'm going to move it all the way up to the top. And I'm just going to put it below the this headline here. Maybe we'll move it out a little bit and then align it like so. And I'm going to remove my actions and events straight away. And instead, I'm going to set up an internal link so that when this button is clicked, it will scroll all the way down to my contact form. That way, I don't have to have multiple contact forms on my page. I can just have these really neat internal links that will link out to other parts of the page without duplicating information. So to add an internal link, it is so simple. You don't have to do anything fancy. You just select the element you want to be the trigger. You click general properties. You click internal link. Because we've got it as a button with a trigger, it won't work there. So we'll have to take that off first. And once we've made sure the button mode, let me just clarify that for you again. So the button mode can't be trigger. We'll just have it as say link. That's fine. And we'll leave that link blank though. We then go to our internal link and we just select that target again that we want. So very similar to actions and events, we're selecting the target. So we click contact. And now if we save that and preview it, what we'll have is an internal link on the button that will go down to the contact section. And from there, they can open up the pop-up. And like I said, that just makes things really easy for navigating within a site. If you have, you could imagine, even for like a photographer, you could imagine maybe you've done various gigs, like you've done a wedding, maybe some sporting events, some nature photographs, and you have those all laid out in different sections of your site. What you can do is you could have, say, 3 buttons at the top, all with internal links to that section of the page. And as long as you've named an element in that section, like maybe your heading text, you'll actually achieve that result. And that way people can navigate really easily. And you could even have a button. If I give this bit of text here a name, excuse me, we'll call this, oh, okay, we've got it already as portfolio, perfect. And then I can duplicate this button. Now, you might not want this on your contact form, but I'm just going to show you as an example. We'll change it again to, where are we, button settings, to link. We'll then go internal link and have this going back up to the top. And then we can just change the button setting appearance to, you know, back to the top. And that will now completely achieve the same effect, but in reverse. And you're again giving people an easy way to navigate around your site. You know, the worst thing that you can do if you've got a portfolio is make it difficult for people to use, because it's just going to turn them off. They're not going to stay on the page. As much as you might do great work, and they might appreciate that, if your site is difficult to use and it's not user friendly, they're likely to bounce from your page. So having something like this to go back to the top. I forgot to take off the action and event there, which is why that appeared as well. You can see you can have a double effect there. But if we preview again, and we'll just go down to the bottom and show you what I actually meant, I will go back up to the top. So again, if you imagine the example with your different sections, your different like types of photography, you could imagine having a button like that in one of those sections. Probably not the best for your contact form, because once you get them to this part, you want them to stay there. But yeah, it's a good thing you can have for that kind of portfolio. So that's another cool feature, I think. Yeah, you don't need to name the link in properties, Ted. So that link can be kept blank, because that is used for a link out to another page. So if you wanted to link it to another page, you could, for example, add a link in there, and that button would now take you to the next page. But we want to leave it blank because we want it to be an internal link. So that's why. But a good question, Ted, for sure. Good to distinguish those differences. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you then is the carousel element. This again is really good for portfolios. I'll make some space at the bottom of the page here and show you it. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is under more elements, so you might not have seen it. And then it's just carousel, and pretty much what you can imagine. It's a standard carousel element that allows you to add multiple images, but what you can achieve with it is just really cool. Again, you don't have to do any custom coding for this. It's just all in-house. You open element properties and you can see the layout is really easy. Excuse me. And what you get with this is the ability to set links on each image and open those links in a new tab. So again, it's just great for like showing off things that maybe are like tied together. So if we had like food, for example, like these might be photographs about food. You can see then if you don't have more than one image, it will duplicate across. But if we just go to like Pixabay and just search barbecue, which I definitely could do with right about now, then we'll add some of these on here. We'll make sure to add more than 3 so we can cycle through. And that way we'll be able to show the carousel off to you guys. And as you can see, you can add images really easily. You know, you don't have to do anything fancy here. You can use Pixabay images. These are all royalty free. You don't have to pay for them. But as you can see now, we've got these 5 dots here. That's for each image, but it won't display on here. But if we preview this now, we'll be able to see the carousel in effect. And that will just scroll through like so, as you could imagine, like a carousel would. And it's really user friendly. Again, it's a great way to show off a load of images that are in the same kind of niche or example. Like if you've got a plumbing or bathroom fitters, maybe you could have like, you know, these are the sinks that I've fitted in the past, and then show all the different sinks. And again, you can have like links for each of these. So I could link this out to a page. Let's just do like the Convertri page, and I can open that in a new tab. And if I save and preview that and we click on image 1, then what that will do is it will open that page. So you could have that linking out directly then to another page. don't think we had the save there on it. Or possibly this might be for the second one, actually. Let's see. If we save that. Huh. Okay, so it looks like that might not be working, which is fine. It's always great to find a bug on the webinar. However, that should actually then open the link that you've set here in a new tab. So that is the intention of the feature. You can imagine how it would work. You click on the image, it opens a link in a new tab. I'll get the dev team to look at that, no problem. A couple of questions there about the carousel auto scrolling. That's a good question. I don't think that we have it to auto rotate. Let's see. Oh, okay, we do have the auto rotate and we have it at 3 seconds as standard. So you could rotate that to 1 second. You can change like the style of the arrows, etc. And you can also have the images, the visible images that you can change as well. So these are some cool settings for your carousels that maybe aren't as obvious when you're setting it up. So definitely check those and I'll preview them for you. So this should now scroll on its own after a couple of seconds. Yeah, you can see I'm not doing anything there. That's scrolling through automatically, which is a nice touch, especially if you're displaying products that you're selling. It's a bit quick there at 2 seconds, but it looks like it's fixed the link bug, which is always nice. So a bonus there of the auto rotation. So I'll have a look into that, why it's not 100% performing as we hoped. But yeah, you can see that when we have the carousel there rotating, that works great. Once you've had the manual click though, that will prevent the carousel from auto rotating. So just worth bearing that in mind. But yeah, that's the carousel element. I think that's really useful as well. And last thing before we wrap this up and before we do any questions, just want to show you that exit intent that we was talking about earlier. And to set that up, you need to have it on the page. So I'll make a new layer for this, so it's clear. And I'll just use one of our layers, a pop-up. So we'll use this pop-up, no problem. And one thing to bear in mind is you want to start your pop-ups as hidden. A lot of them will come like this if you're using a Convertri one. If you're making a layer from scratch, you'll want to make sure it's set to start as hidden. If you do it to start as visible, it's going to be there the whole time, so you won't get the desired effect. So make sure it's starting as hidden. So I've got my new layer. I go to my page actions, add new action. I want the event type to be exit intent, mouse leaving the viewport, and then my action will then be to show the layer, fade in the target, and my target is going to be that second layer, which is pop-up one. So that if I now preview this, and I will actually publish the page to show this off, and that will show the exit intent. And if anyone's got any questions, feel free to get them in the chat now and I'll answer them after I've shown you this in action. So you can see I've got my page here. As soon as my cursor leaves the viewport, that is going to pop up. And that is just a good way to, you know, as you can see, don't forget your free report before you go. You're telling people to wait, not to leave the page. You may have come across these in the past yourselves. Some people would say they're quite annoying. They're a good way to boost conversions. If you're doing it in a non-spammy way, like that pop-up there, it's not spammy. You're not doing it every time they move around the page or after a certain amount of time. That's fine. I think it's a good way to get a few extra conversions for people that are exiting the page. Okay, so that's going to be the end of the demo. I hope that you've all learned a lot about actions and events in Convertri and about how to improve or make a good portfolio. And please, you know, let me know about any questions you might have, and I'll be happy to answer them all. Glad to be of help, Clifton. I'm glad it was helpful. No worries, Hans. You're welcome. I'm glad that it's been helpful, guys. It's always very rewarding doing these webinars when people are saying they get a lot of them. So yeah, Sean, Danielle, no worries. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you taking the time out. And there'll be another one next month, the topic of which will be revealed shortly before the webinar takes place. So do stick around in the Facebook group, check the emails. There'll be one about this time next month. Cool. Well, I don't see many questions, which is not a problem. If you do have any, please get them into support. Support@convertri.com is where they'll go. And we have a support desk team that are always on hand to help. You're welcome, Joel and MJ. Yeah, there'll be a replay available in the knowledge base. We'll get that out at the start of next week. Okay, cool. Well, thanks all for coming. I hope it's useful, as I said, and I hope to see you all at the next one next month. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.